Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our Thursday lecture with Education USA Ukraine, and my name is Oksana Husakova. I'm a Special Project Coordinator for Education USA Ukraine. Have you ever considered applying for a master's degree in law in US? And would you like to learn more about studying law in United States and the requirements set for students applying for LLM? If you would like to take your law degree to the next level at US University, join our webinar today with guest speakers Sarah, Assistant Dean for Graduate Admissions at Franklin Pիրsa School of Law at the University of New-Hampshire, Hannah, Assistant Director at Minnesota Law, and Eшлі, Associate Director for Admission at USC Gold School of Law. They will provide an overview of LLM program in the US seeking funding and application process for those programs. Thanks everyone for joining, and the floor is yours.
All right, let's get started with our slides then. All right, thank you all for being here today. We are very pleased to be here with you. We know this is not necessarily an easy task, but we're thrilled that you have decided to take this time and join us today. We are going to talk about studying law in the United States. We will take a moment to introduce ourselves. We will do a general overview of the US legal system and what an LLM degree is. We will talk about how to search for LLM programs and find the best fit for you and your needs. We will go through the application process for the LLM program and then talk about financing your legal education. Of course, that's a very important aspect. There will be time at the end for questions and answers, of course, so please save them and we will answer them all at the end. So I'm Hannah Logan. I'm the Assistant Director of International Programs at Minnesota Law. We have a general LLM, a business law LLM, and an SJD degree. If you do the general LLM, you're welcome to earn one of 11 optional concentrations. It's not required, but if you want, you can specialize in one of those 11 areas. Every admitted student is automatically considered for a scholarship. We have an amazing pre-LLM legal English program in the summer. LLMs take classes with JDs. All degree programs are integrated in the same classroom, which is a very interesting experience. And then we have lots of opportunities to get hands-on practical experiences as well. As you can see from the map, we're right in the middle of the country in the north. So 4 Seasons, a very affordable cost of living. It's a medium-sized metropolitan area in the US. We've got, I need to change that, 8 professional sports teams and many Fortune 500 companies as well.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarою Dorner, and I am the Assistant Dean for Graduate Admissions and International Outreach at the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pірsa School of Law. We are proud to be the state of New Hampshire's only law school, and we're located about 1 hour north of Boston, Massachusetts. We offer 3 specialized LLM programs, and we'll talk a little bit more today about kind of general LLMs versus specialized LLMs. So our programs are specialized. They are in the areas of intellectual property, commerce and technology, and international criminal law and justice. And as you can see, our IP program is offered both in person and online. And then our international criminal law and justice program is a 100% online program. So while we love to have international students come to our campus, we recognize that that is not always possible and do have a number of online offerings available as well. Our school has been top ranked for intellectual property law for over 30 years now. Our alumni network spans the globe, and we're there in over 80 countries, including Ukraine. Students in our program have the opportunity to gain some hands-on and real-world experience through our legal clinics and our immersive classes, where we take students out of the classrooms and on site to different locations. We have an academic success program that will help students ensure that they're successful in the classroom when they're here as students, and support those students who are interested in pursuing a U.S. exam. Our career services office is absolutely phenomenal, and they will work with our LLM students to support them with their professional goals, whether that is to return to their home country to practice law or to pursue optional practical training here in the U.S. once they've completed their LLM degree. And we do have a number of partial tuition scholarships available. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you all today.
Hello, my name is Eшлі Sim. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Southern California Gold School of Law. I'm happy to be joined by one of our current students from Ukraine, Serhiy Zaretsov, and you'll hear from him a little later. USC is located in the heart of Los Angeles, California, on the western coast of the United States. Our beautiful city of Angels is the second largest city in the United States for the legal market and the third largest city in the world for economic activity. So it is great for LLM students who want to take advantage of everything our school and our city offer on both professional and personal levels. We offer a variety of degrees in law, both general and specialized, and also a full range of academic, career, and bar advising and programming to support our students from around the world. And we do have students from about 40 different countries every year, including from Ukraine. All of our applicants are considered automatically for various scholarships and housing stipends. And I encourage you to learn more about our school using the QR code on the screen, where you can also request a fee waiver whenever it's time for you to apply. Thank you so much. Happy to be with you.
All right, I think I'm going to get us started with just a high-level overview of the U.S. legal education system, because I know that it can be very different here in the U.S. than it is in many other parts of the country, or in the world, excuse me. So here in the U.S., the LLM is a tertiary or postgraduate degree that sits atop the JD. The JD, the Juris Doctor, being the traditional law degree here in the U.S. And so the way things are structured is that in the U.S., students will complete a 4-year bachelor's degree. And then if they want to be a lawyer, they need to go on to earn a JD degree, which typically takes 3 years. After that time, they are then eligible to pursue an LLM degree. For foreign lawyers, they are able to gain entrance to the LLM program after completing, typically in most countries, it's the Bachelor's of Law, the LLB. Some countries it might be different, and it would be whatever that first professional degree of law is. So they can kind of bypass the JD degree altogether and go straight from the LLB to the LLM. Whereas the first degree in law is typically a general degree, the LLM can sometimes be general, but it's often a specialized degree that will give students expert credentials in a specific area of the law. So just some key distinctions here for you. So as I mentioned, the JD degree is typically a 3-year degree. The LLM in most cases is a 1-year degree. There are some LLMs out there that are a 2-year program, and typically those have a legal English component built into them. But most LLM programs will be 1 year. Students who pursue a JD degree are then eligible to take any bar exam in the U.S. For the LLM, you may be eligible to take a bar exam in some states. So it will depend on the LLM degree you've earned. There's a number of different factors, but there are many states where you would be eligible. The JD is the standard for attorneys practicing in the U.S. So all U.S. attorneys will have a JD degree. And the majority of students in a JD program typically are U.S. domestic students. We do see some international students, of course, come through JD programs, but the vast majority will be U.S. students. And as I mentioned, it is the preferred law degree for work here in the U.S., whereas in the LLM, these are often specialized in different areas of the law. Some programs will have the possibility to transfer from the LLM to the JD program. And the vast majority of students that are in residential in-person LLM programs in the U.S. will be international students. We certainly have U.S. students that pursue the JD degree, many in person, and then we're seeing more and more LLM programs move online as well, and seeing a U.S. population pursue those degrees. And then I want to highlight as well just 2 other law degrees that you may have heard of, just to kind of lay the total groundwork here. So the SJD is typically a 3 to 7 year program, and it's a research-based doctorate degree. This degree is often common for academic professions around the world, but less common here in the US. And then we have the MLS. And this can go by a few different names, but it's essentially a master's of legal studies. So this would be for a student who already has a bachelor's degree, but typically a degree that's not in the law. So a bachelor's degree from any field, and they don't necessarily want the full 3-year JD law degree, but they do want some formalized legal education. And so this is a 1-year master's degree that we're seeing more U.S. students pursue. And then certainly I know here at New Hampshire, we've had a number of international students also pursue this 1-year, just a master's of legal studies. These can be general or they can also be specialized. And so I want to pause here as we had mentioned we have some current students and alumni here with us today. So I think it would be helpful to hear from them. And I'll start with Maria Ortinska, who graduated last year from UNH Franklin Pierce with her LLM in intellectual property. Maria is off camera today because she just had dental surgery, but she is still here with us. So Maria, I want to turn it over to you to just take a moment to first introduce yourself, just share a little bit about your background and what you've been doing since graduating just in May, and then give you the opportunity to share a little bit about the differences you noticed between law school here in the US and your experience in Ukraine.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everybody. My name is Maria Ortinska. I am patent and trademark attorney in Ukraine. I am managing partner of IP Style Patent Law Company, and I have been practicing intellectual property law in Ukraine for 15 years. And after I decided to join the intellectual property LLM program, and I'm very happy with this program. I graduated, as Sarah mentioned, and answering to the question, what is the big difference that I noticed between law school in Ukraine and law school in the United States? First of all, it's like different experience because we can communicate with other lawyers. In my group, all people were intellectual property lawyers, attorneys, laws of different countries, and it's amazing experience. And some classes we had only with LLM students. Some classes we had with GD students. So for me, it was a great experience communicating, understanding not only the United States law system, but other systems of law. And the second, of course, like for our countries, civil law countries, it's a great experience to understand common law system, how it's work, and what is happening in the United States. So I can say that like studying in the United States university helps me to reach my experience, to have it wider in different fields. And for me, the biggest difference was that specialization. In Ukraine, only some universities have this specialization, and usually we have like maybe 20 or 30% like specialized law courses, and other courses, you know, like civil law, contracts, criminal law, and other subjects. Here, most of my courses were dedicated to the intellectual property, and for me, it was like modern trends. For instance, some people chose entertainment law, or for instance, I took a copyright licensing course, and for me, it was amazing, like deep experience in this field. And also, I want to mention like what I did. I am very happy with my law school, Ukrainian law school, but we didn't have this experience of practicing writing documents. Here, it was great experience when we can write a lot of experience, get feedback from the professor about our writing, about subject matter, how we can improve this. And I think it's very useful, especially for international students.
Thank you, Maria. I'm going to turn it over now to, I believe it's Sergey from USC. Do you want to just take a moment to introduce yourself and share your thoughts on the question here? We can hear. Yeah, no, we can hear and see you. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm right now in USC, and I've just left the class because there is 9 a.m. and 15 minutes in Los Angeles, so we have classes right now. That's why you see that I'm outside. Actually, what was the question? I'm very sorry for asking this.
Okay. Yep. So the question is, if you could just, you've introduced yourself, but just share a little bit about the differences that you've experienced between going to law school in Ukraine versus your experience in the LLM program in the U.S.
Got you. I had 3 higher educations in Ukraine. The first one on the base of my education was the law school in Kharkiv. It was definitely the strongest law school in Ukraine, maybe one of the strongest in Europe. Very concurable school, and trying to compare the LLM programs in law school in USC with other law schools, I can say that maybe the type of education program here is much more soft than in Ukrainian system. And maybe that is just the only one difference which I noted at the moment. And please remember that I just started my education here, so I'm not so experienced to compare.
Thank you. And I think that Hannah, I know that you have someone from Minnesota joining us, but I think he's not here yet. Is that right? Maybe coming from class or?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So Will, as soon as he joins, I know that we'll be asking our students and alumni for their feedback in a few other areas. So we'll loop him in. So thank you to both of you for your feedback on that. And I believe now I turn it over to you, Hannah, for the next section.
Yes, you do. All right. So once you decide that you want to study law in the United States, you'll have a lot of options. There are many, many law schools in the United States that offer LLM degrees, or JD if that's what you decide you want to do. So when I'm talking with prospective students, there are 4 categories I encourage them to think about as they are doing their research about which law school to apply to and then which law school to ultimately attend. The first 2, academic and professional, are a little more serious, and geographic and personal feel a little more silly, but they are related and they are all very important. So we'll start with academically. You'll want to see what you're eligible for, what type of coursework you are looking to take. Do you want to take a variety of classes or focus on something very specialized? What type of practical experiences do you want when you're in this law program? Do you want to specialize and have a credential sort of thing? At Minnesota Law, we call them concentrations, and that appears on your transcript as you are, a subject matter expert in this area. Are you looking for a robust orientation or perhaps a summer English program to help you acclimate to your new home and the new school before you actually begin regular courses? Are you looking for a public university or a private university? And thinking about the size and the diversity of the school as well. So not just the law school student body, but do you want to be at sort of a Big Ten public university where there are a lot of athletic competitions and you can go to an American football homecoming game and that sort of thing? Or are you looking for more of a small institution, maybe in a small town, that sort of thing? And then think about the program itself. So there are, hundreds of LLM programs, and everyone is a slightly different size. There might only be 25 or 30 LLM students total. There might be 300 or 400 LLM students total. So think about what you're looking for in your experience inside the classroom. Then think about what you want after you graduate and you continue your career. What sort of alumni network, what professional connections do you want to have as you return to or start your career as a practicing attorney? Think about, like I was talking about, the size of the cohort. Do you want, hundreds of colleagues and perhaps friends from around the world, or are you hoping to really focus your professional network on maybe Europe or the Middle East or South America? You can look at or ask, if it's not posted online, at the current class structure, or you can ask, what is a typical class like? Where are they from? And you can make decisions partially informed based on that as well. Every city you go to will have local professional communities, organizations, things like bar associations, affinity groups. You'll want to think about how involved you want to be outside the classroom as you work on your professional network as well. And then, of course, you want to think about how long do you want to stay in the US, if at all, after you graduate. Do you want to apply for OPT? We can talk about that later, to do a job or an internship, or are you going to earn your degree, graduate, come straight home and start working? That will also inform your decision of which school is right for you. You'll want to think about the weather. It sounds silly, but there are people, some of our students from Brazil want to experience snow for the first time, or maybe Thailand. They want to experience a real winter. And so someplace like New Hampshire or Minnesota is a great option. If you need a lot of sunshine, I would encourage you to look closer at a school like USC, thinking about the weather. What are you looking for in this type of, this year of your life, right? I think people forget sometimes that if you are unhappy, you will not be successful. And things like the weather, access to nature, the ease, your ability to get from one place to another is very important in thinking about that. And of course, you'll want to think about how big of a city or how small of a town you will want. There are law schools in every different type of metropolitan area if you'd like. And then, of course, you need to be happy. You have to be happy if you want to be successful. You want to think about, do you want to make close friends, or are you looking for more only the professional sort of colleague relationship? Do you want to be somewhere where there are many Ukrainian people so you can go to a Ukrainian restaurant, participate in a cultural activity or some sort of festival? Do you want to hear Ukrainian music when you're out and about? Maybe you don't need that as part of this 1 or 2 years of your life. You'll want to think about access to an international airport. Things like, can you just take a quick light rail train to the airport, or do you need to take a taxi or drive a couple of hours? I will also say, as you can see, we have current students and alumni here with us today. Not all of our students were able to join us today. So if you want to hear the perspective of a student from Ukraine or Eastern Europe, to get their perspective and see and ask, what was your experience like? What went well for you? What was challenging for you? Our students are always happy to help. Just ask people like Sarah and Ashley and me, and we'd be happy to connect you as well. So as you're searching and you have these criteria in your head about what you need for your best fit, you'll want to search then. There are 2 main online directories. The Law School Admission Council, LSAC, has a directory you can search. You can sign up to be contacted by law schools through something called CRS. The American Bar Association also has a listing of specializations. You can search by category. I want to focus on intellectual property, for example, or a school. There are third-party sites similar to LLM Guide or LLM Study. Keep in mind that we as law schools pay to advertise there, so that might not include all law schools that are possible. In the United States, a lot of us use LinkedIn. That is a very common sort of social media type tool. Many of our alumni use LinkedIn and have public profiles. So if you are searching for someone from Ukraine who went to USC, for example, you can go on their LinkedIn profile and send them a message and ask them a question. Tell me more about your experience in the LLM degree, that sort of thing. Of course, the authority on any information about a law school is our website specifically. There are often forms you can fill out to request more information, to get on our mailing list. We have QR codes on some of our slides sometimes, but make sure that as you're really narrowing it down and trying to get in-depth information, go directly to the source, the law school website. We are here with Education USA. They are an amazing resource to get more information about law schools, about the application process. They can connect you with people like us if you're not sure who to ask. Attending virtual events like this is a wonderful way to learn more specifically about a different program, a different school, and it's a really great way to make that first connection. If you are looking at rankings, that is an important factor for some people. It is one factor of many that I hope you'll consider. The U.S. News and World Report, of course, is sort of the most famous ranking body, the organization that does that most famously. So I'm going to ask our current students and alumni who are here, if you can tell me more about what one of the factors was, one of the key factors in deciding that the school you chose was the best fit for you. And Serhi, can we start with you? What was one of the deciding factors in choosing USC?
You're asking me, correct? Firstly.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Okay. Firstly, I chose the San Diego University Law School because it was close to me. I was living at the time in San Diego, but then searching the question and discussing with friends, with local friends, with Americans, opportunities, they suggested me that USC would be better for my perspectives, and I sent my request to USC also, and in a month I received confirmation that I can get to USC. That is why I'm here right now. USC is much more popular in Southern California. It's the biggest university. It's one of the strongest law school in US, and people talk that it's the best one in California.
Thank you. The nice weather behind you helped too, I'm sure. Maria,
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to you, Maria. Can you talk about one of the main factors in deciding that New Hampshire was the best place for you to go for your LLM?
Yes, sure. As I mentioned, I'm intellectual property lawyer. So for me, my specialization was the key factor, and UNH Law School is one of the most famous in the United States, or maybe in the world, in terms of intellectual property. So that's why I chose this school. And like to support this position, I knew already about our school when I visited some international conference, for instance, INTA, and a lot of my foreign partners are alumni from this school. So for me, it was this factor. And now I understand that schools that specialize in intellectual property provides me some benefits, because when I meet other people in different conferences and they're from a school, it's like good connection. And for instance, in May, I'm going to the international conference, INTA annual meeting, and my school organized some activities for alumni. So for me, it's like a source of specialization, improving myself in my field and networking.
Thank you. That was really helpful. All right, I'm going to talk just, I think, is it my turn still, or Ashley, or are you taking over?
I think it's my turn now.
Okay. I will talk about
the LLM application components. Thanks, Hannah. Once you identify some LLM programs you wish to apply for, you will need to put together your application. Each school may have slightly different requirements, but generally your application for a particular law school may be made up of the components that you see on the screen. First, the application form. Be mindful of submitting the right application form. For instance, at USC, we offer many different degree programs, both on campus and online, and you want to make sure you complete the correct form for the right program so that you don't experience any delays or confusion later on. And so make sure that you're applying for the right program and the right term. Start by completing the correct application form. Second, your resume or CV provides a great skeletal outline of your academic, extracurricular, and professional background. So take some time to refresh what you may have already on hand for your law school application. Third, your personal statement or essay allows you to fill in that skeleton to share who you are and why you are pursuing the LLM. So if your resume or CV shares the what, your personal statement or essays will be able to provide you with the opportunity to explain the why. Fourth, your university transcript and law degree verification are critical for meeting eligibility requirement for the LLM. So be sure to get started on putting those elements together. Fifth, your English proficiency exam score report allows the law school to determine your ability to thrive in the classroom in the US. So please be sure to make sure that you are prepared for submitting your English proficiency exam score report. And finally, letters of recommendation, typically 1 to 2, allow those who know you well to provide an assessment to add a really helpful dimension to the other components of your application. Next slide, please. So now onto the application process. First, I'd recommend that you determine whether you need to take the English proficiency exam, as if you do, you may need to build in some time to prepare for it. You may qualify for a waiver, for instance, if you are a citizen of a country in which the official language is English, or you are a permanent resident of a country in which the official language is English. But each university may have slightly different requirements for qualifying for the waiver, so you should check. If you are required to take the exam and you've done it already, you may be required to retake it if it's been a while. So again, it's a good idea to check in advance with the law schools you intend to apply to find out what the requirements are for their English proficiency requirement. TOEFL and IELTS exams are accepted by most law schools in the US, if not all schools, and no other standardized exams are generally required for the LLM. So typically, some students will ask us, do I need to take the LSAT or the GRE? No, you do not need to take that. Typically, that exam is required for applying to the JD program, but not for the LLM program. Next slide, please. Second step is determining if you should apply through the Law School Admission Council. Some schools require you to apply through LSAC. Others may allow you to apply directly to them. As all US law schools use LSAC, however, it may be convenient way for you to apply to more than one school, as you'll only be required to submit your transcript and degree information once, and it can serve as a clearinghouse for sending out your application components to all the schools that you are applying to. LSAC also offers a transcript authentication and evaluation service that may be required by the law schools you're applying to. So I would suggest that you consider utilizing LSAC for convenience. You do have to pay LSAC their fees to utilize their services, but the individual law schools may be helpful in providing waivers for their application fees. That's certainly something that we do at USC to be helpful to our applicants. Next slide, please. Third, contact the university where you obtained your LLB degree to request the transcript and degree information. If you're applying through LSAC, as I mentioned previously, it's great to download the transcript form from your LSAC account to provide to your university so that LSAC can easily match the documentation they receive to you. There may be an instance where you're applying to a school and somebody else with the same name may be applying. So to reduce confusion, it's important to do whatever you can to streamline the process and get all the forms from your university over to LSAC and the law schools that you're applying to. Whether or not you use LSAC, the law schools you apply to will require that the documentation is official, which means they don't come from you, but come from the university directly. Plus, they may require an English translation. So it's a good idea to communicate with the university that you graduated from for your LLB about the package that they are putting together to send to LSAC or to the law schools, because you may need to be helpful in coming up with the English translation in concert with your university. So you may need to be helpful in that regard. So be sure to communicate with your university and find out what they need from you so that they can help you get information over to LSAC or the law schools in the US. Fourth, be mindful of all of the application deadlines for the law schools you're applying to. Some have earlier deadlines for scholarship consideration. You may wish to consult with Education USA and the law schools you're applying to make sure that you're submitting all of the required documents by the applicable deadlines. And again, check to see if they can provide application waivers. That may be helpful in saving you a little money. So be mindful of the deadlines for applying. Their schools may have priority application deadlines. As I mentioned, there may be special deadlines for scholarships. You might want to create a chart or a list of all of the requirements for your application and the deadlines that go along with them so that you are not late in getting your materials in. So I think that covers our application process. So the question for this section for our alumni and student perspectives would be, what advice do you have for future LLM students about the application process, given your experience applying to your LLM programs? Maybe we'll start with Serhi at USC. If you could get back on and share, what advice do you have for future LLM students applying from Ukraine or elsewhere?
I'd recommend them to be very detailed and carefully in searching any information regarding the future education. What I mean the searching in documents, because it's very important, especially for those who are going to get the loan for education. And this is, by the way, the very strong opportunity made by government in the United States. As I know, Ukraine still have no such programs, and there are no such programs in most of European countries. Financial programs, which helps students to get the educational program in university, the first one or the second one, doesn't mean. And this opportunity exists in the United States. So for future LLM students, I'd rather recommend to search this question carefully through different resources. Also, it would be very useful for them to visit the university before studying the process of entering to this university. Try to meet consultants, try to meet the staff of the university to get as much information as it is possible.
Thank you so much.
That's
Yeah,
all.
thank you so much, Serhii. Yeah, I mean, I think Serhii touched on more information that you might need, or more steps that you might need to take beyond just applying, right? So you may need to be concerned about your visa process and, putting your finances together. So I think that's a really good point to consider when you're applying, and a good reason to get started early. Maria, what advice do you have for future LLM students about the application process?
First of all, I agree with you about visa. For me, it was like key issue because the lines in embassy are very huge, and for me, I just received my passport with visa, and that day I took a ticket to the United States, and I just arrived from the one day before my classes. So for me, it was like key issue. And once you understand that you are admitted to the university and you get your I-20 form, go to the embassy, look different locations. For me, for instance, I couldn't find any slot for interview in Lisbon, where I lived, and I just go to Warsaw to do this. And for me, before applying to the law school, I thought that I have B1, B2 visa and it's enough to study in the United States. No, you are obliged to have a separate visa just for studying. And the second thing, because in Ukraine, it's difficult situation with location, with communication with Ukrainian university, I would recommend to maybe now you can just get your transcripts, and it's a huge process. Some universities, not my university, but some universities, they don't have international department for issuing transcripts. Some universities don't have a lot of information how they should do this because they don't have experience. So be careful that it can be some delay with documents. And the third advice is about vaccinations. A vaccination before you go to the United States for studying, you need to have your list of vaccination. And for me, because it was war in Ukraine when I applied to the university, and it was many years ago, I needed to find this process to understand, to compare my childhood vaccinations and required in the United States, and even I was obliged to take some additional vaccinations just to enter the United States according to this student visa. And the next thing I would recommend, if you have some goals, for instance, to pass the bar exam in the United States or just to be eligible, you can contact in advance with your university, and once you get these transcripts, maybe you can talk to them about the documents you need for your future bar exam. And I would recommend once you arrive to the United States, you get your adaptation period, think about future bar exam because it's a long process, and evaluation of your Ukrainian documents also took 6 or 7 months.
Thank you so much, Maria. Yeah, Maria raised really helpful and important thoughts for our students listening today. One of them is that we know at the universities here in the US what has been going on in Ukraine and the difficulties that our Ukrainian students face in getting their transcripts together, getting their documents together. Their universities often are not able to be helpful, or they've temporarily shut down. We understand these difficulties, and so it's really helpful to reach out to the universities about the requirements and what accommodations could be provided for Ukrainian students because of these very unusual and difficult situations our applicants find themselves in. Sarah had mentioned connecting with university representatives and how helpful that is. We know that our Ukrainian students, prospective students, may be living in all places around the world, including in the US already, but in other countries. And it may be very difficult to connect with law school representatives. And we really encourage all of you to reach out via email. We'd be happy to set up meetings with you via Zoom, or communicate with you online in some way via email so that we can give you the advice that you may need. So thank you so much, both of you, for those thoughts. And I believe we may have one other student joining us as well. Alexander, are you with us as well about giving advice for future LLM students? Okay, well, he couldn't make it, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you to Serhi and Maria for your additional thoughts for the application process. And next slide, please.
All right. Ashley, do you want to take this? I think we had talked about me maybe doing just this one and maybe the next one.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm happy for you to do this if you wish.
We don't have a lot of time left, so I will go pretty quickly. Maria and Sari both, we talked just a moment ago a little bit about the F1 visa approval. If you are going to enroll in a university in the United States, you must have an F1 visa if you are not a permanent resident or citizen of the United States. That can be a process that takes a lot of time. And part of that is needing to prove that you have the amount of funding, the amount of money in your accounts, in your possession, to cover all of your expenses for the full duration of your degree program. So 1 year usually. So that includes tuition, any fees and mandatory insurance, as well as cost of living. So that proof that you will need to show the embassy or consulate in your visa appointment can be a scholarship letter from one of our universities. It can be a bank statement in your name. It can be a bank statement in a family member or friend's name. Perhaps your employer is going to sponsor you a little bit. It can also be a loan document. Everyone is going to have a slightly different situation and a different combination of those things. No matter what combination of those things you will need to prove that you have the full cost of funding for the entire year. For example, just to put up here the numbers at our schools, the total cost varies a lot. The cost of living varies a lot. Keep in mind that's not what you're actually necessarily going to pay. You might pay slightly more, you might pay slightly less, but this is what our universities and the US government have decided you must prove in order to obtain the F1 visa to come to the United States. So when you pay, you'll pay the deposit before you get your I-20 if that's required by the school. At Minnesota, you must pay the deposit if we're going to work with you on the I-20 process. You'll get the student visa, you'll arrive in the United States, you'll begin your program. Once you register for classes and begin that, then you pay online in your student account usually. It's at the start of each semester. Some universities have options for monthly payment plans if that is helpful for you to pay that in smaller amounts over a longer period of time. I will also say that housing is typically an entirely separate charge, if not an entirely separate process from tuition, fees, insurance, books, etc. Not sure how much you know about housing in the United States. Typically, it is required that you will pay first and last month's rent just to start living somewhere. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about financing your education in the United States. And now I will turn it back over to Ashley.
Thank you so much, Hannah. So yeah, I mean, financing your education is really important part of your journey. And one of the things that you might want to consider would be taking out a loan. And, there are different ways of, going about that. One is taking a look at your government to see if they might offer loans for you. Certainly, given what's going on in Ukraine, this may be nearly impossible to consider. If you are here in the U.S. and you've become a permanent resident or a political asylee, U.S. government loans might be possible. So it would be helpful for you to reach out to the financial aid office at the university that you're planning on enrolling in to find out whether U.S. government loans may be possible for you. So think about that if you're already here in the U.S. Second is a private loan. You may think about looking at private lenders. And when you look at those loans, you may need a U.S. co-borrower or co-signer with significant credit history. So it's important to take a look at what the private lenders are requiring of you when you are taking out a loan with them. Understand what the terms of the private loan would be when, for instance, the interest starts accruing. Ideally, you want the interest to accrue starting after you graduate, but a lot of loans have the interest starting to accrue at the moment of disbursement. So again, it's important to find out what the terms of the private loan would be. Third, if you are working for a company, they may have a tuition assistance program that you're not aware of or that you may be aware of. So learn about what benefits are part of your employment. And if they find out, if you find out that they offer such a program, make sure that you understand what the eligibility requirements are and what additional requirements may apply to you. Typically, a tuition assistance program with your employer may require that you work for that company for a certain number of years, even after you complete your LLM degree program. So you may be on the hook for a while so that you are providing a benefit to your employer. So learn about what the requirements are. And if they don't provide a program like this, ask. Perhaps they would be able to provide something special for you and negotiate a tuition assistance program specifically for you. It doesn't hurt to ask, right? So find out what may be possible for you. And finally, asking your family and friends for a loan might be a really good option too. They may want to really support your educational goals. And so talk to them about what might be possible in helping you to finance your educational studies. Next slide, please. So you may be thinking about that private loan that I mentioned. And if so, you might want to know, like, how do I get started? Talk to your law schools that you're thinking about to see if they have any suggestions or information that they can provide. So for instance, at USC, while we do not endorse or suggest any particular lenders, we do offer tools for identifying and comparing potential lenders on our website. So you can see what lenders USC students have borrowed from in the last several years. And one of the tools that we have on our website allows them to see those lenders and to compare, what terms that they were offering. So that might be a good place to start. Next, please.
I think It's me now, Ashley. Is that right? I think I'll wrap us up with just a couple more slides and then one final question for our student and alum. So I know that a lot of people, you're out there and you're looking for the free money first. So where the loans you have to repay that, of course, you want to figure out what options might exist that don't need to be repaid. And so as you heard from each of us today, most schools do have some institutional scholarships available for LLM programs. These are typically partial tuition scholarships only. We wish we could offer full scholarships, but most law schools just do not have the resources to do that. But there are partial tuition scholarships available. Many schools will have this built into their application process. So it's important to check with the schools that you're applying to. In some cases, they might require a separate scholarship application. In some schools, you might need to check a box on the application form saying you'd like to be considered for scholarship and here's why. In other schools, you don't need to do anything. You will just automatically be considered. Many schools will offer scholarship assistance based on merit. So looking at your academic record, professional experience, the quality of your application. And then some schools will also have some aid available based on financial need. So check with the schools and see what you need to provide to be considered for scholarships from the school. And then, of course, looking online for additional scholarship opportunities outside of law schools. There could be some scholarships available to students from your country or your region. Sometimes there's online competitions or small grants. Many schools will maintain a listing of some resources. These aren't necessarily comprehensive lists, but they can be a good place to start your search. And typically admissions, the admissions staff could help direct you to their webpage that might have some options for you to consider. We always recommend that you connect with Education USA. They're not necessarily going to have money to give you, but they might know about opportunities in the area or could connect you to some additional resources. And then, of course, what I find is that students are really pulling together a few different funding sources, their own savings, family sponsorship, maybe friends, and possibly even employers. So absolutely check with your employers and see if they have any tuition benefits available. And then I think for this is our final informational slide for you about working while you're here as a student. So we get a lot of questions about opportunities to work and to even fund your education through employment. So here's what the good news is, that the student visa does allow you to work in the US while you're a student. There are some restrictions to that. So it's limited to up to 20 hours per week during the school year. And it does need to be on-campus employment. So you can't be going out in the community and finding work. The bad news, I guess, is that I don't know any students who can manage really 20 hours of work. And I don't know schools that necessarily have that amount of work available. And the other piece is that this cannot count towards your proof of funding for the F1 visa because you don't actually have those funds yet. So in most cases, you won't be able to pursue employment on campus until you've actually arrived at school typically in August. So I think, knowing that there could be some opportunities to work, and that's a great way to have some spending money while you're a student, but it's not a great plan for, funding your education. And the other thing I would flag here is that assistantships, research assistantships, or TA opportunities, teaching assistantships, those are pretty rare for LLM programs. So while it can't hurt to ask, know that those are unlikely to be a fit for LLM students. So it would just be, more traditional on-campus employment. And with that, I will turn to Maria and Sergey to ask what is, I guess, so far for you, or what was your favorite memory of your LLM experience? So Sergey, I see you up on the screen already, so we'll start with you, if that's okay.
It was that day when I received the confirmation that I can start my education, and they confirmed all my documents. I was surprised by that, really.
I can imagine what a moment that must be like. Wow, that must feel. Thank you. And thank you for being with us today. I know that you have said classes are starting and we're
Thank you.
at time. So let me quickly, Maria, do you want to share about a highlight or favorite memory from your time at UNH Franklin Pierce as an LLM student?
Yeah, for me it was my day of the graduation because I can like reflect about my studies, about the way I go. So it was like amazing time, and for me it's like in the United States the graduation is like huge procedure. I think it's like huge difference between Ukrainian law schools and the United States law school, and it's like it was really nice and it was great feeling.
Thank you. And thank you for being here with us today, especially after just having dental surgery. So we really appreciate your time. I'm going to turn it back over to the Education USA team because I know we're sort of at time here. So I just wanted to check in and see if there's any questions out there that Ashley, Hannah, and I can help to address.
Thank you so much, Eшлі, Hannah, and Sarah, for joining us today, the same Sergey and Maria. We actually have just a few questions about the name of the school, if I'm not mistaken. It seems to me it was the question to Maria. So Maria, if it's possible to repeat the name of the school one more time.
Yes, it's UNH Law School. Maybe Sarah, you can like tell more about law school or the name or some contacts.
So actually on the screen now, thank you for sharing that, Hannah. You can see all of our names and our school names. My school, it is such a long name. So it's the University of New Hampshire Franklin Pierce School of Law. Sometimes we abbreviate to UNH Law, sometimes UNH Franklin Pierce. But all of us, you can see our contact information there. So if you wish to get in touch with us, we are happy to connect with you. I believe that there was going to be a link to a Google form as well, or a QR code that you could complete where you could leave your information and then we can reach out to you directly. But please feel free to grab our contact information while it's on the screen. Ashley, Hannah, and I would love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. And the second question was about the recording of the webinar. So, dear viewers and participants of this webinar, you can definitely watch the recorded version of the webinar on YouTube, Education USA Ukraine. If you have any questions, just email us, or you can also see the contacts of our speakers today. You can also write your questions to them. So it seems to me we don't have any questions. Thanks everyone for joining us today. And I would like to remind you that we have our Thursday lectures every week at 6 p.m. Kyiv time. So please don't forget about it and join us to get more information about education in the United States. Thank you and see you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.